Hello, and welcome to another SigmaTEK webinar. My name is Kenneth Rosario, Application Engineer, and I will be giving you an introduction to SigmaQUOTE, our updated quoting and customer management solution for SigmaNEST version 20. Today, I will be covering what you will need to run SigmaQUOTE, as well as a quick overview of what's new in this version. Before we go over what's new in SigmaQUOTE, I need to discuss what SigmaQUOTE is if you have never used this product before. SigmaQUOTE, again, is the updated job management software available in version 20. It is a successor to what we now call Legacy Quote. It allows you to manage contacts and company relations, as well as provide quotes for customers' jobs. Since this is a new database-driven solution, all information regarding contacts, companies, and quotes can be easily managed in one place. For those of you who had information in Legacy Quote and are worried that you might be left behind, don't worry. We already have a solution in place for you to bring your information along into SigmaQUOTE with a utility that we have built. This utility will be covered in an upcoming webinar for those who would like to upgrade in the future. Now, let's first talk about what you will need to run SigmaQUOTE. Firstly, you will only need to install SigmaNEST version 20, as the installer will have everything you need to run SigmaQUOTE. To license SigmaQUOTE, we have two options. First, you can enable the module in SigmaNEST with MX 1417. Secondly, you can use a standalone SigmaQUOTE client, which is SNX 1418. This standalone client allows you to run SigmaQUOTE as an independent quoting engine, but it will not allow the quoting user to post code or export DXFs. The standalone client allows for two users to be able to independently quote and nest parts for production. For this webinar, I will be using the SigmaQUOTE module for SigmaNEST. One more thing I would like to cover before diving into SigmaQUOTE is some terminology to make sure that we're on the same page. SigmaQUOTE uses the term job over quote, as we can now quote items not produced with SigmaNEST. Quote is still used within SigmaQUOTE, but is now a status for where a job is in the production process. I'll explain this later when we actually go within SigmaQUOTE. Costing and pricing is the same as it was in Legacy Quote. The cost is the amount you spend to make parts, and the price is what the customer pays for those parts. Now that we have covered what SigmaQUOTE is, let's learn about what's new. The first major update to SigmaQUOTE is that it has been built from the ground up using a new database engine. This allows SigmaQUOTE to search, calculate, and generate quotes quickly and with confidence. Since we can now leverage the SigmaMRP database tables, you can now quote items not made with SigmaNEST, such as fasteners, electronics, and 3D printed items. Along with the UI updates, the new engine allows SigmaQUOTE to have more flexibility and control over the quoting process. You can control all aspects of the quote, from parts within SigmaNEST to modifying markups, manage shipping methods for each customer, and everything in between. More control means more aggressive pricing, giving you an edge over the competition. Finally, the new engine provides SigmaQUOTE more robust data management by reducing the number of files required to create a quote, automatic quote revision control, and information security that sent quotes will not hinder business integrity. With the new user interface, the features of Legacy Quote have been divided into two menus: Customer Resource Management and Job Creation. We have also added new features to each component to improve your ability to work within SigmaQUOTE. The first component is Customer Resource Management, which I will shorten to CRM. It allows you to manage vital business information, including companies, contacts, and events. The other component is Job Creation. This component creates quotes for services and creates work orders when a customer accepts a bid. Let's take a moment to go over the CRM side of SigmaQUOTE to see the new UI and features. So now that we're here within SigmaNEST, let's go and see how we can use a CRM to manage our company. To access that menu, we'll go to the drop-down, go to Companies, and then the window with all of our companies and contacts will pop up. In this window, we can add new companies, modify current, and then look for contacts we want to reach out to. To add a new company or contact, we can go to the upper left, select new company or contact. In this case, I'll select new company, add the necessary information in yellow, and then any other information we may find important, and then hit OK. We can also add a new contact via the same method, or by selecting on a company, right-clicking, and then adding a new contact. It will automatically populate the company information, and then we just have to fill out the yellow boxes from there, and then hit OK. Go ahead and reload. When I select on a contact or company, it will automatically highlight this field. If I have a very long list of companies and contacts, I can sort them. So in this case, I can drag the header here up to the gray bar, similar to how the parts list is, and they'll sort by company. I can select the contacts with that company. I can then undrag the header to unsort. But when I select on one, SigmaQUOTE will say Robert Jones, the contact, is from ABC Engineering, which is the company, and the relationship to me. They're a customer. When I select one of these contacts, these tabs, such as details, terms, and history, will then automatically populate with any information associated with that contact and company. This is extremely helpful for adding information such as relationships. So if a company's subsidiary or competitor to another company, you can add those relationships so that you make sure your quotes are competitive, or you may not quote something to prevent a problem from happening with a relationship down the road. If a customer calls in, you can log that event. So in this case, under history, I can log an event. So if Robert were to call in regards to a quote, a delivery, an issue, or an inquiry, you can log this information and keep track of it. If need be, you can create a follow-up. This will allow you to create a calendar event so that you can follow up with that customer in a timely manner to make sure that their needs are met and that you can make more sales. In this case, I won't be adding an event, so I won't be saving any changes. If I want to add a calendar event outside of an event with a customer, I can go to the calendar and then view it. It'll be very similar to how you see Outlook or Google Calendar or any application that you typically use. So in this case, I have my month view. I can look at a 5-day view for a work week, a 7-day view if you work on weekends, and even a yearly view. If I want to add an event, I can always double click on a day and then add an event. If I have things that need to be completed, but not necessarily need to be a calendar event, I have a to-do list. So things like safety checks or bookwork, I can add it as a to-do item. I can add a subject and a quick description. And then I can set a due date of when it needs to be done by and a priority. Make sure I get important tasks done first and least important tasks done last. Once I'm done here within the CRM menu and I'm ready to go back to SigmaNEST, all I simply have to do is hit the X and then close out from there. Because we're working with a database, all the information that we've added, changed, modified within the CRM section of SigmaQUOTE is automatically saved. Now that we have covered the CRM side of SigmaQUOTE, we can go over the job creation functionality. Within the job creation component, you can create quotes for jobs, view and modify the job status, and convert jobs into work orders within SigmaNEST. These features can be accessed using the New Job as well as the job list within the Workspace tab. With SigmaQuote being database-driven, the process of creating a quote is now a more refined forward and backward process. You can start a quote by either entering the information for who the quote is for, or by importing the parts into SigmaNEST. This allows the user to quickly and easily generate a list of costs for services rendered for the customer. For example, if a customer changes a part mid-quote, you can easily remove the old part and requote them. Let's go back to SigmaNEST to see how you can quote a job. In order to create a job within SigmaNEST, we can start this one of two ways. First, we can import parts and then create the job, or we can create the job and then import the parts. As I've previously stated, the process of actually creating a job and then quoting it for a customer is a forward and backward process. Thus, the order in which we do this doesn't matter, as long as we have all the information that we need. In this case, what I'll do is I'll go to SigmaQuote first, create the job, and then import my parts. To start the quoting process, I'll go to the New Job, select my customer. In this case, I want it to be Robert from ABC Engineering. Define my currency, as well as any other information. So we have custom fields, as well as when the quote's due by, usually about the same day, and then when the order would be due by. Once I've filled this out, I can hit OK. What SigmaNEST will do, it will then add that information, collect all the customer data, so any special markups or other quoting information, and then build this header up here. This header contains the customer information, who's created the job number, as well as, in this case, their tax rate. So now we've created the job, let's go ahead and go through the process of actually importing parts into SigmaNEST. What I can do is I can hit the SigmaNEST Workspace button to then go back to SigmaNEST. Once I'm here within SigmaNEST, it's the same SigmaNEST that you're used to. I can import a DXF. So in this case, I'm going to make an example that the customer emailed me some files. I'm going to bring up my import window from my other screen. In this case, they sent me these. I'll go through my standard importing process. And then once I'm done with my importing process, I'll then go ahead and define my part parameters. So in this case, it'll be material, thickness, how many I would like to nest, and then the machine associated with that. I'll then go ahead and create a task. In this case, I'll use AutoTask. And then you can see that my parts have been nested and NC has been applied. Once I'm done here, I can go back and you're going to see that it's going to say Edit Job. And so what's going to happen now is SigmaNEST is going to take all that information, so all the NC, all of the parts, the material, and then bring that information back to SigmaQuote to then generate costing. Now, if I offer services that are not handled within SigmaNEST, such as multi-axis milling or 3D printing, I can add those services as a simple item. To add them, I'll go over here to Simple Item, and then what SigmaNEST will do is open up another window that I can use to add that information. So in this case, I can add a part code. So in this case, I'll do 3D printed parts. I can add a quantity. In this case, it's going to be a job of 1. Description. So I need to make sure that my yellow boxes are filled out properly. I'll associate a cost. In this case, this was $150 because they want to use a very expensive material. Define my markup or gross profit margin, and then SigmaNEST will then generate a price from there. So add or add and close. This is very similar to how you had sheets to the sheet library. So I can define multiple 3D printed parts or multiple CNC machine parts, add them, and then when I'm done, add and close. And I'll be able to see that 3D printed parts as a line item here. Once I'm done adding parts, adding simple items, modifying my header, I can change my status of the quote from draft quotation here in the upper right hand corner to a quote. What this will do is it will allow me to then create documentation from reports. In this case, I'll create a SigmaQUOTE. And then that will allow me to then email that quote. Let me drag it up from my other screen here. And as you can see, with my quote, I have a template. So all of my parts are on the template, as well as my 3D printed parts. And then I'll read out a subtotal, tax, and then total price, as well as a footer. Once this is done, I can then email this to the customer and wait for a response. Now, not all quotes are accepted by the customer, as you might know from experience. Customers may haggle the price, change part quantity, or prefer a different manufacturing method. Something that is now built into SigmaQUOTE that you will find very useful is the ability to adjust the quote after it's been sent. Every time the quote comes back, you can change its status from quote back to draft quotation, which enables changes. This will also create a revision so that the old quote can be referenced or saved on a later date. Let's go back to SigmaNEST to see how this is done. Now, let's say Robert likes the quote so far, but he needs to make some changes. What we can do to reflect those changes, we can go to the dropdown under New Job, select Jobs List, and then pull up his quote. Once we're in here, what we can do is we can go to Quote Revision, create a new revision, and what SigmaQUOTE will do is it will then add a revision, which is shown here, and then what we can do is we can modify this quote to reflect those changes. First, we need to remove this 3D printing gears. I'll select the item and then delete it. That will remove the item from the quote. Robert also requests that we added some parts that we've already cut for him. So what I can do is I'll go back to SigmaNEST. In this case, I'll bring up the workspace, which has been assigned to the quote, and add those parts. Since I've already cut these parts, what I can do is I can go to the parts list, search for his parts, select them, and then add them. What I can do from here is then go back to AutoTask, delete this task, go through the process of auto-tasking, nesting the parts, and then applying NC, and then taking this information and then bringing it back to SigmaQUOTE. So go back to Edit Job, and then SigmaNEST is going to do the same thing as before. It's going to grab all that information from the parts, the tool pathing, the material used, then use that to then redefine the quote. Once everything's good here, what I can do is I can change the draft quotation once again back to a regular quote, and then send that off to Robert. Now, let's say Robert likes the price, but it could be a little better. In this case, the total price to Robert was about $205.72. However, someone else is beating us out for a price of $180. As you see, to us, the cost to cut this job was $171. So technically, we can cut these parts at that price and still have a profit. So what we could do now within SigmaQuote is we can set what's called a fixed price. Instead of changing the markups of parts and hoping we get the proper cost, let's go to the report settings here in Overview. And then what we can do here within Overview is we can change individual information about the parts and adjust their pricing, but we would like to set a fixed price. So what I'll do here is I'll set a fixed price to be $180. I'll hit Tab, and then I'll hit Reprice and Save. So what SigmaNEST is going to do now is it's going to reprice all the parts so that they match what he expects. SigmaNEST will also calculate the gross profit margin as well as the profit associated with this quote based upon how much it's going to cost us to cut this job. As you can see, we have a revision. So over here is our old quote with the 3D printed parts, and now we have our new quote with the removed 3D printed parts and these new parts. Since Robert is happy with the quote based upon the email that he sent, what we can go ahead and do is create a work order. What I'll do next is I'll go over here to my quote or my status, change it from quote to order. What SigmaNEST is going to do now, it's going to gather all of our quote information so I can send out an order confirmation to Robert and make sure he has that for his records. And then what's going to do next is it will grab all the tasks, grab all the parts, and then ask me when do these need to be cut by. And then after it's done setting that information for the work order, it will ask me to save the parts. So I'm going to say yes to all. And then it's going to define a work order. I'll then hit Generate SigmaNEST Work Order so that SigmaNEST can go ahead and create it. I'll then go ahead and close out and go back to SigmaNEST. Now that we have a work order, what we can do now is we can go to our work orders, and then you can see ABC Engineering, which was created today, is our work order. And just how we can nest multiple work orders together, I can select multiples of these, hit load, and then load up multiple work orders into SigmaNEST for nesting and processing. Since we need to make sure everything is correct when you quote, SigmaQuote's data security is handled in the SigmaMRP configuration within SigmaNEST. This menu can be found in the Tools Help tab and the drop-down under Configuration. The SigmaMRP configuration allows you to set your company information, markups, tax rates, shipping, and other mission-critical settings. The only users that can access these settings are SigmaNEST admins, so that they do not get changed on the fly. As we all know, nothing is worse than the books being poorly balanced and government audits being performed. Let's take a moment to review what I've covered. SigmaQUOTE, which is installed with SigmaNEST version 20, allows you to manage customers and events. It also provides a powerful solution to quoting jobs for parts within and outside of SigmaNEST. You can modify quotes quickly and easily while being able to track their changes. SigmaQUOTE settings are only modified by admins, preventing issues with profit loss or business integrity. Finally, when a customer decides to make a purchase, everything in SigmaQUOTE can be easily accessed within SigmaNEST to be easily nested and produced. At this point in time, I would like to thank you for watching our webinar on the new SigmaQUOTE for SigmaNEST version 20. If you have any questions, please let us know by either asking them now or by asking our support team. You can reach out to them via our support phone line, our support inbox, and our Connect website.